My name's Meg. I'm a partner manager here at ShipBob. I'm excited to introduce you to Alana Semmel, the VP of Retail Partnerships at Cymbio. Cymbio is an all-in-one digital growth platform built for brands to manage and automate all processes, operations, and collaborations with retail, marketplace, and social commerce partners. So from product data to inventory mapping, taxonomy, orders, documents, and billing to cash flow management and working capital, reconciliation, payment collection, data, and analytics. So that's quite a mouthful, but Cymbio really does it all. So I'd love to pass it over to Alana.
Thanks, Meg. Appreciate it. And good afternoon. I think it's afternoon for everyone at this point. Hope everyone's been having a great day. And then I just want to ensure you guys can see my screen. Someone can give me a like, something in a chat, or I'm just going to dive in. And if you can't, if someone can just send a message and we'll take it from there. So I know Meg kind of gave a brief overview of Cymbio. Our agenda today, really, I know it's towards the end of your day, so we want to give you as much information, good information, digestible information as possible. I'm sure from my understanding, it's been a really productive day for everyone, so hopefully we'll continue that into the last few sessions. I'll reintroduce Cymbio a little bit to give you some context as to why we're here to talk about holiday selling and trends that we saw during the Cyber 5 last week and into this week. And really how we work to, automate processes to enable growth, and to really kind of end it discussing a little bit more about inventory and, really maximizing inventory going into 2023. So Cymbio, what are we? So we are an all-in-one commerce growth platform. Really what we do is we integrate with brands. Our one integration can support hundreds of retailers and marketplaces. Really what that means as it relates to a brand specifically is we can work to integrate via e-com platform, 3PL, EDI, API, flat files, combination of, but we really work to integrate with a brand once to help scale their marketplace and dropship businesses. What we then do as it relates to supporting those businesses is really automate the cycle from A to Z. So we handle automation of product information and taxonomy, the flow of inventory between brand systems and retailer systems, orders, tracking information, returns, cancellation, invoices. As Meg really said, there's a lot that we handle, and that's because a lot goes into supporting just one marketplace or just one dropship channel. And our goal is to really automate these processes to allow brands to scale those businesses without changing any of their existing processes. And really on that point is, again, just reiterating the fact that there's no additional operational lift when it comes to working with Cymbio to support this scale and growth. So having said all that, really, what did we see happen over the Cyber 5? So, having some internal conversation, I think, we still use Black Friday, Cyber Monday all the time. Cyber 5 is kind of like this newer term. So for anyone who it's newer to them, really understanding what that 5-day time period looked like between Thanksgiving and Cyber Monday. I would say it's interesting if we look at really what's gone on in the past few months, right? There are plenty of retailers who really started pushing holiday in October. A lot of Black Friday promotions this year started well ahead of Black Friday. So, for the sake of this conversation, we're really going to focus on those 5 days just to really understand what happened and what trends we saw. So first key takeaway that we've really seen, and we've seen it before too, is Black Friday, despite the fact that we are a business that is focused on e-commerce, we are focused on automating dropship and marketplace sales for brands. Black Friday has been the number one volume driving day, followed by the Saturday after Black Friday, so really going into that weekend, and then closely followed by Cyber Monday. We support, as I mentioned, hundreds and hundreds of retail channels. We saw a lot of success in the department store channel. Really as it relates to, I'm going to kind of jump into the middle of this slide for a second, but to key categories. So we are product agnostic. We work with brands in, the fashion space, in the home space, pet space, more kind of hardware spaces. And we really saw jewelry, apparel, and footwear shine during this 5-day period. On average, we saw a 3x increase in order volume in the Cyber 5 versus previous weeks, that same 5-day time period. So ensuring that we're capturing those weekend sales. And this 3x increase, again, is an average. In some instances with, top performing brands, we saw 6x increase, which was really, really exciting to see, especially given that many of these businesses are super established. And one more key point that we saw is that we saw a double-digit increase in average order value versus last year. Definitely there was a lot of promotional activity happening. But if we kind of dive in and look at some of our brands' businesses individually, we saw that AOV increase, but it did not have an increase on, it didn't have a negative impact on their sales. Obviously there's, economic circumstances going on. I think we all feel personally too, right? Prices have gone up, but it wasn't a hindrance to sales that were happening. So kind of taking some of these key takeaways and, thinking about holiday in general and peak selling seasons in general, it's not just the Cyber 5, right? Obviously that's the culmination of, a year. It's, the pinnacle from a sales standpoint when we look at Q4. But it's important for us to understand with the brands that we're working with that these peak selling times happen throughout the year. We have some brands who Q4 is not their strongest season. It's Q2 based on the seasonality of the business. I spoke to jewelry being a key category that saw growth for us, in that 5-day time period. And we know that, it's going to continue. We have Valentine's Day coming up in Q1. We'll have Mother's Day in Q2, right? So there's additional opportunities for these sales for these other 360 days in the year, other than the Cyber 5, that we're working now with our brands to understand, okay, what are the key takeaways that we can help leverage as we look forward to 2023. Different, strategies that we saw our brands take. In general, we see when new assortments go live on retailers, we see a pop in sales. It's how it works in store too, right? Newness is key. So is it understanding timing of pushing new product live on retail channels? Could it have been holding it maybe for a week to push it live to really maximize these peak selling periods? Participating in different promotions, how that really moved the needle and can move the needle into sales. And also retailer channels. So I think one thing that's really exciting for us in what we do for brands and really seeing it come to fruition is being able to launch new retailer channels constantly for the brands that we're supporting. So, we had a brand, I'll give as an example, have a conversation with a retailer at the end of October and said, we want to be live for Black Friday. And not only was that brand live for Black Friday, that brand was live a week before Black Friday during a peak period for the retailer too, where the retailer wasn't sure if they would be able to make it happen. But it happened, and that channel was incredibly successful, right? So being able to leverage these new channels as an opportunity to introduce a brand during a peak selling period is a great takeaway for us. And it's something that can be leveraged throughout the calendar year, not just during that Cyber 5. And there's another piece that's a little less focused on the order volume as it relates to the business, but really how our automation helps support brands and the teams to experience this growth without that additional operational lift. So a lot of these peak selling time periods are happening on the weekend. A lot of these periods are happening when people are spending time with family and friends, and we may be tuned in and checking in as to what's going on with sales, what's happening, but having that assurance that there's no need to ensure inventory is sinking. There's no need to ensure that orders are making it to the warehouse, or that tracking information the second that warehouse starts shipping goods out is being updated with retailers. But that Cymbio's automation is really that tool to allow for the growth. And when we talk about no additional operational lift, we mean it, because we're taking that piece off the table completely and automating it to ensure that this growth can happen without the additional bandwidth that would typically be required to add more channels or to support higher order volume. I touched on this at the very, very beginning, and we devoted a whole slide to it. But really, excuse me, how do we also work with our brands to think about maximizing inventory? So we see a lot about inventory in the media. There's definitely inventory out there to be sold. It's likely going to affect promotionality of businesses. But really, how do we ensure that brands that we're working with are leveraging their inventory as an asset and not liability? And there's a few ways that we can really help them do that. One is channel selling. So I've been talking a lot about being able to expand that retailer mix, because the automation that we support or provide rather, allows for that scale and growth. But really leveraging new channels to increase brand visibility. How are brands, reaching new customers, or reaching, showcasing new product categories that they may have? How do they reach new markets? So that could be new markets, domestically, internationally, within a current market, right? But really increasing brand visibility, gaining more brand equity, and leveraging sales, and in essence, liquidating inventory. Another lever that we see our brands pulling often is supplementing wholesale businesses with dropship. And this really can be done a few ways. One, retailers aren't buying the whole product catalog. So how can a brand leverage dropship and marketplace to expand their presence on an existing business? Potentially learning more about products that could be really successful with that retailer. And another way is really backing up upfront orders. There's no need to ever stop selling, and there's especially no need to ever stop selling on bestsellers unless you don't have the inventory. But if the inventory is there, how do you use this one bucket of inventory to support multiple channels and give the best possible customer experience and maximize sales? And really continuing to learn. So I think one thing that's exciting in what we do is really giving brands visibility into their sales channels, providing insights as to which channels are working, what's working in these channels, and taking these learnings to expand on future opportunities. In some instances, it can mean, maybe this one channel is not the right fit, but maybe these 5 other channels are, and applying those learnings following, not just these peak selling periods, but throughout the year to truly maximize the business, maximize inventory, and in the end, maximize sales. So that's kind of our spiel. But really, I think it was exciting for us to see what went on in the season, seeing some brands that were newer to us experience, tremendous growth as to where they had been. And also to really see brands that we've been working with continue to experience growth via new channels, but also by taking learnings from years past, periods past, and applying those to increase their sales on existing channels as well. I'm here to answer any questions that you may have.
Hi, Lana. Thanks so much for the presentation. That was super informative.
Awesome. Happy to hear.
Yeah, does anyone on the chat have any questions for Alana and for Cymbio and their offering?
Thanks, Lindsay.
Yeah. So you can always connect with Alana after the session. Yeah, I guess I'm curious about, question for my own edification. Curious about the differences you said between those merchants that are seeing those successes in Q2 with seasonality versus those that are seeing a lot of success in the Black Friday and Cyber Monday space. What are some of the key takeaways maybe for planning and understanding how to get ahead of your own like seasonality hump? Like, is there any sort of overlap there other than just general strategy around inventory and stock?
Definitely. It's a great question. And I think, it's really understanding a few different things. Kind of what's that time period look like for the retailer that you're working with? Ensuring that assortments are loaded and ready to go with the retailer so that you can maximize your selling time while you're in that peak season and your product is going to experience the longest life possible on the retailer's channel. And also, understanding what the promotional calendar looks like, understanding if you want to play into it, working with our team to ensure everything is set up so that going into that period, again, it's not this, set it and forget it. You're there, you're present, you want to understand what's going on, but not needing to do anything on the operational side because all is set and to run in an automated fashion.
Cool. That's super helpful. I have another question. I know you manage retail partnerships, and we have a lot of merchants that are always looking to bolster relationships with retailers or even get into retailers for the first time. So not necessarily totally related to Black Friday, Cyber Monday, but is there any sort of like high level pitch or overview you have for those merchants and what they need to be maybe focused on or what could help?
So I think, in thinking about dropship and marketplace, it's really understanding it's an amazing, amazing testing ground. So my background prior to Cymbio was on the retailer side, and every merchant has, their budget of what they can spend. And when you have the ability to go with a brand and test a brand, it's a really great, foot in the door for you to understand if it's the right channel for you without undertaking the potential risk of inventory. It's also a great way for a retailer to understand, would this be potentially a good fit? We have brands who have started with retailers on dropship, and it's led to wholesale relationships given the success of the business online only, and it's converted them to be in store as well as online.
That's amazing. Yeah, I think that's a trend that we're seeing a lot on our side due to just the limited capacity and space in person retail. So it's really beneficial to get you on the retailer's marketplace. So then you can prove, as you said, a proving ground for the retailer themselves.
And coming from that retailer side, when you have numbers to back up what you want to go after, it's always helpful.
Yeah, I can imagine. Any questions from the chats? Anything come to mind? And as Lindsay said, if you have any questions for Lana after the session or you want to follow up on anything she said, you can go to the Cymbio booth in the booths tab. So there's a way to connect with Lana after the session.
Perfect.
Cool.
Thanks, Meg, and thanks for everyone who attended.
Yeah. Thanks.
We will be in touch soon.